Santa's here. Moran had to wait 5 years for Chuaning to come back. I only had to wait about 5 minutes because I just finished the book right now and we're gonna go get the new one. Ah yes, they got the dog books beside each other. We're going to buy 2 copies because apparently I opened my spines too wide.
This one's gonna be mint.
Babysitting. I have to find a place to sit that isn't filled with old people. I mean, some old ladies might like this. Some old men might like this. Okay, beautiful, beautiful.
Oh god.
Oh my god.
His forearms are out.
His forearms are out. I'm like, look at him. We're like, slut. Oh my god, he looks so good.
I'm sorry, the open collar? Forget about this. This isn't.
How is he not like blushing like crazy? That one pinky is holding all of his horniness.
Pinky clenched in horniness.
She doesn't wait. One more chapter for me. I know that there is a piece of art in here that is Tre Explicioso.
Show me the art.
It's finally a cat. Young hero size ranking. Oh my god, this is when he finds out the size of Moran's dick.
That would give anyone cat ears.
What had he just read? What size? Even if he was dense, he wasn't that dense. What other size could it be? Filthy, shameless, indecent, absolute unit.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, foot fetish.
I'll take it.
What is happening in this book?
Maybe his little peats hurt.
Yeah, his little Pete's. Oh my god, look at this.
Oh,
Oh my god.
oh my god, he's naked.
Oh my god.
Shielding his honor, his maidenly virtue.
They're sharing food again. We love that. Okay. Okay. Chuaning felt his cheeks blaze with heat. He turned his head away from the wall so that it would feel like Moran was lying naked beside him, and they were...
I'm sorry, Chuaning is the one?
What's up guys, it's Kictor, and happy Arha release day. That actually sounds kind of dirty, doesn't it? Release day? This is extra exciting for me because I didn't have to wait, because I procrastinated reading the previous volume. Now, I don't know any spoilers. I don't know how I'm like chronically online and somehow still don't know what happens in Arha. In the last book, Moran had to go on this journey into this in-between life and death area to get Chuaning's soul back. Multiple souls. Turns out he has 4 souls because Chuaning died trying to save Moran. And also Moran realized that Chuaning actually has been putting his whole Chuwasi into saving him and being kind to him, but he's just so like standoffish and cold that Moran never knew any of these wonderfully beautiful things Chuaning was doing for him were from him or even intended to be kind. The big example of that is the wontons that Moran believed were Shimeis actually were made by Chuaning all along. And Chuaning originally wanted to give Moran the wontons because he felt bad for disciplining him. So turns out these two really deeply care for each other, but just have been on complete separate pages, and Moran kind of realized that his whole previous life was based on this misunderstanding. And so now from this moment on, he's like, I am going to be so nice to Chuaning, and I'm going to be so loving and do whatever he wants. I'll be the best disciple ever, and he deserves the world. And the thing I actually found the most satisfying in the previous book was that at the end, he actually reveals to Chuaning that he knows now about the wontons, and that he says sorry for his past acts, and that he's going to be disciplined now. And Chuaning, of course, he's always fighting back his feelings, and so he's having this trouble of like showing emotion and being cold and letting himself get too worked up, and I just really love whenever we get Chuaning's POV, so I hope there is more in this book, because the last book ended on the cliffhanger that we won't be seeing Chuaning for 5 years because his soul has to repair. So let's see if he comes back, because I'm gonna read the first chapter here. And the back of the book says, absence makes the heart burn hotter. Oh shit, okay. I know there were like some smutty pictures in this, so like I'm really hoping for like a good sex scene or something. Could you imagine if they actually did something? I just can't, like I can, because I know Chuaning has so many emotions, but like, oh my god, Chuaning having a good time while they're having a good time, like, I want to see it so bad. Chuaning has slumbered for 5 years since Moran rescued his soul from the underworld. He wakes to find the world changed, and the greatest change of all is to his disciple Moran. Now grown up, Moran is nothing like the callow youth he remembers, and Chuaning finds himself drawn to his disciple with a force he never anticipated. Oh yeah, so like also 5 years has passed, so like Moran should be like an adult now, so... Oh my god. Is Chuaning just like, this relationship isn't problematic anymore, I'm diving in? That sounds so bad, like outside of a Danmei scenario, but I feel like things that are written in Danmei novels definitely don't apply to real world stuff at all. Meanwhile, Moran has at last set aside the misunderstandings of 2 lifetimes. When his hatred for his teacher falls away, he finds the feelings beneath are not respect between master and disciple, but fiery passion. Oh my god! Yet, even as the 2 wrestle with their own hearts, Moran begins to realize that this world is diverging from the past life he remembers in a strange new ways. Okay, wow, so this really sounds like it's gonna be like spicy, summer heartthrob of fun kind of novel. Also, like, the large scheme of things, the actual big plot of like what's going on and why Moran like reincarnated into this life and got to kind of do a do-over. I'm very intrigued to see what's like going on behind the scenes. So I wonder, oh, I'm so excited. Okay, also just to like admire the front cover, this art is gorgeous. We have Moran, who does look older now, and Chuaning, and they're walking down the steps together, and their hands are together, so like symbolizing that they're now like understanding each other maybe. We've got like a husky and a cat here, so that's cute. Also, the way Moran's bangs are up, it kind of looks like he has little ears. And Chuaning's actually smiling, like he's got a soft smile. It's really, really sweet. And on the spine, there are red necklaces, I think. And I don't know what those mean yet, so I'm excited. But I think you saw our reaction earlier. The interior art is so good. Like, oh my god, I love this artist style. Chuaning just looks hot. It's like Moran is like the muscly, like hot heartthrob, but I'm definitely more into like thin Chuaning type. Oh my gosh, just look at him. This is a really beautiful shot. Oh, what the heck? This is so weird. In my edition, I got a page that was printed like this. Stitch! We differ in how we like to enjoy our books.
What is happening?
You know, I don't mind dog-earing pages, which I know is a sin, but it's okay. I saw, like, oh look, this book is like already bent. Like, I didn't do that. Like, I wouldn't dog-ear from the bottom. No, it's not a dog-ear.
What? What?
In all your years of librarianing, have you seen this before?
As a librarian, I now feel like I distinctly have no idea how books are made. You really chose the right copy. I would have lost my goddamn mind.
I wonder if yours is like that too. Go check.
Completely pristine.
Oh, good. That's so funny.
I honestly kind of dig it. Never lose your spot as long as that spot is on page 52. I can probably trim it for you.
Oh, no.
If you want
I like it. I have one of a kind.
I wonder if that means you like won like the Willy Wonka prize of like you can get transmigrated for free, but you will be whipped by Chuaning and probably abused by Emperor Moran. So
well, maybe my teacher will be really hot. I did say I was into the thin ones.
I could do like pull-ups,
yeah,
chin-ups.
Yeah, you can.
More than you.
No, you can't.
You're so silly.
Goodbye.
We whipped for your crimes.
Crimes. You whipped for your crimes.
Your crimes require whipping.
Okay. Chapter 120. Shizen goes into seclusion. The first light of dawn painted the clouds red. Though it was still early, a large number of disciples had already gathered outside the Red Lotus Pavilion. They lined the sides of the pathway in their white mourning robes, their heads lowered and eyes downcast. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of the morning bell rang from the heaven-piercing tower. Several figures could be seen walking slowly in the distance, bearing a coffin. Xu Zhengyang and the Tanlang elder walked in front, followed by Moran and Shumang. Shimei and a monk dressed in worn robes walked on either side. They approached slowly through the morning fog, following the dew-slick bluestone path. The monk held a lantern. Even in the light of dawn, the lantern's brilliant glow was visible. It emitted a dazzling golden radiance like summer blossoms. The gathered disciples lowered their heads solemnly, scarcely daring to breathe. They'd all heard that Master Huazu of Wubei Temple had hastened over for the sake of the Yuheng elder. This unassuming monk must be him. The juniors' reverence toward such a legendary figure far outweighed their curiosity. None dared look too closely as he made his way up the long mountain path. Thus, the great master passed by these reverent disciples, an airy billow of robes in his wake. His passage, for them, was marked by the tapping of his monk's stick and the occasional glimpse of hemp-woven shoes in their downcast gazes. The coffin was steadily carried the whole way, yet this was not a burial, but a revival. No one wept. As they reached the Red Lotus Pavilion, Huazue looked around and then said, Next to the lotus pond, that will do. There's an abundance of spiritual energy there, suitable for spells. All right, you heard the great master. Shu Zhengyang, leading the others, set the black ice coffin down beside the lotus pond. Great master, if there's anything you require, only say the word. Saving Yu Heng is as good as saving my own life. If there's anything I can do to help, I will. Many thanks for Shu Zhengmen's kindness, Huazui said. This humble monk requires nothing at the moment, but will be sure to inform the sect leader should the need arise. Of course, please do not hesitate. Huazui smiled. He pressed his palms together and bowed respectfully to Shu Zhengyang, then turned to address the others who stood nearby. This humble monk is unskilled and will need 5 years to bring back Elder Chu's soul. So that this humble monk may not be disturbed, the Red Lotus Pavilion will be closed to visitors from today until Elder Chu's revival. Though Shu Meng had already heard that it would take 5 years for his Shizen to return, at Huazui's reminder, the rims of his eyes grew red once more and he hung his head in silence. If anyone has any parting words they wish to say to Elder Chu, please do so now. There will be no opportunity otherwise for over 1,000 days. And so they stepped forward one by one. Shu Zhengyang and the Xishan Peak elders went first, each taking their turn to stand solemnly before the coffin and say their farewells. Shu Zhengyang said, "Let us meet again soon." Tanlang said, "Wake up soon." Xuanji said, "Hope everything goes well." And Lucan said with a sigh, "I kinda envy you, frozen in time for 5 years like this and not aging a day." The rest of the elders all said their piece, some with long spiels and other with short ones. In no time, it was Shu Meng's turn. Shu Meng had every intention of holding it together, but the young man had always been ruled by his emotions, and this was no exception. He stood next to Chu Anning's coffin and began to cry. Between sobs, while vigorously wiping away his tears, he managed to choke out, "Shizen, I'll train hard, even without you around. I definitely won't embarrass you at the spiritual mountain competition. I'll tell you all about how high I ranked when you wake up. My Shizen has no losers among his disciples, after all." Shu Zhengyang walked over and clapped his son on his shoulder. Shu Meng didn't cling to his father as he usually did, instead turning away with a sniffle. In front of his Shizen, he didn't want to look yet again like a useless, spoiled child who relied on his father for every little thing. Next was Shimei. His eyes were wet as well, but he didn't say anything. He only looked at Chu Anning for a time with his head bowed before quietly backing away. After Shimei retreated, a pale pink haitang blossom was placed gently into the coffin. The slender hand that held it, though still youthful, was already approaching the length span of an adult's. Moran stood at the coffin's side. A breeze danced over the surface of the water in the pond, carrying the softly sweet fragrance of blossoming lotuses. The breeze tousled his bangs, but when he lifted his hand, it was to brush Shu Anning's face. Moran pressed his lips together. He looked as if he had many things he wanted to say, but in the end, all that came out, soft and slightly hoarse, was, "I'll wait for you." Wait for what? He didn't specify. He considered saying, "I'll wait for you to wake up," but those words seemed somehow insufficient. There was no way to express the feelings close to bursting the vessel of his chest, as though there was a pool of scalding lava in his heart, trapped and roiling, slamming against the walls and bringing him pain and anxiety. It felt it was only a matter of time before those walls were breached, and the lava would spill out uncontrollably, the raging flow melting him to ash. Meat Bun always does an incredible job of using, metaphors and simile to convey the emotions of her characters, especially when it comes to, heartache. The second book of Arha in the very beginning, Chu Anning's POV, is a perfect example of that. But even now, he was still unsure what that burning feeling was, so he only said, "I'll wait for you." It's love! With this, the Red Lotus Pavilion was shut and barred. An enormous barrier came down like a gate separating life from death, denying entry to all. For the next 5 years, no one would be allowed the fragrance of lotus blossoms in the summer, nor the quiet solitude of winter snow within the pavilion. Bamboo leaves rustled in the wind, and haitang blossoms drifted slowly to the ground. From outside the Red Lotus Pavilion, all the way to the main gate, disciples dropped to their knees and bowed. At the end of this vast river were Moran, Shu Meng, and Shimei. Shu Zhengyang announced in a booming voice that rang throughout the skies and forests, wishing Yu Heng Elder well in his seclusion. The disciples, their heads bent to the ground, echoed solemnly, wishing Yu Heng Elder well in his seclusion. Thousands of overlapping voices rose as one, rumbling from the mist-shrouded Xisheng Peak and startling birds into flight. Their calls filled the sky as they circled the treetops, afraid to land. The mass of voices rose heavenward, rolling like thunder through streaming clouds. Wishing Shizen well in his seclusion, Moran said in a soft voice. He bowed for a long time. 5 years of waiting. After Yu Heng went into seclusion, each of his 3 disciples, unwilling to take another elder as their teacher even temporarily, trained and cultivated on their own. For various reasons, aptitude, cultivation path, other such factors, Shimei and Shu Meng stayed at the peak. Moran chose to travel. It was true that he really did learn better through experience, but that wasn't the only reason for his choice. So many things had turned out differently in this reborn life. Beyond Chu Wanning's unexpected death, Moran was also still greatly worried about the fake Goshen. He suspected that the person behind all this might have been reborn too. After all, whoever it was, they were arguably quite proficient with the Zhenglong chess formation. Yet no one else in his previous lifetime, all the way up until he'd taken his own life, had been capable of utilizing this forbidden technique to the extent he'd witnessed in the course of their repeated encounters. Moran had no talent for sleuthing. Ever since the battle at Butterfly Town, the entire cultivation world had been on high alert, waiting and watching for that mysterious actor to slip up and expose themselves. He didn't really need to get involved. Moran knew he wasn't exactly smart. His strengths lay in his abundance of spiritual energy and his natural aptitude for cultivation. Since a future confrontation was likely inevitable, the most productive thing he could do right now was to recover his pre-rebirth battle prowess as soon as possible. In his last life, he had been a destroyer. In this one, he wanted to be a protector. Oh, that's so cute. Not long after Chu Wanning went into seclusion, Moran stood before the main gate of Shisheng Peak, a travel bag slung over his back, ready to set off on his journey. Only a few people had come to see him off: Xu Zhengyang, Madame Wang, and Shi Mei. Xu Zhengyang clapped him on the shoulder and said, a little awkwardly, "Meng won't be coming. He said..." Moran chuckled. "He said he'd be too busy training in the forest to see me off, right?" After a brief, mortified silence, Xu Zhengyang swore. "That thoughtless brat!" Moran smiled. "He's got his heart set on first place at the Spiritual Mountain competition. It's only natural he's diligent about training. I'll leave it to him and add some glory to Shizen's name." Xu Zhengyang looked over at Moran, then said, hesitant, "The Spiritual Mountain competition is the foremost tournament in the world of traditional cultivation. I'm sure Ran will grow and learn much in his travels, but the competition will probably bar the kind of hodgepodge techniques you're going to pick up out there. It'd be a pity if you end up missing out because of that." "My cousin's got it covered," Moran replied. "Don't you want to make a name for yourself?" At that, Moran actually burst out laughing. Make a name for himself? In his previous life, he had missed the Spiritual Mountain competition because he had committed some wrongdoings and had been punished with confinement. He had always felt resentment over it. But now, that same thing seemed so insignificant. What did it even matter? He was someone who had seen so much death and so many partings, awash in an endless flood of trials and tribulations. He was someone who had gone from defiant to hopeful, from hopeful to resentful, from resentful to relieved, and from relieved to remorseful. The Moran of the present no longer cared for beauties and fine wines or the worship of the masses, much less for things like revenge or the thrill of killing and destruction. He had already seen for himself the boundless opulence and luxuries at the apex of the world, and he had grown tired of it all. He didn't want to go back to such a cold place with no one by his side. After all, he had once been Emperor Taxianjun. He had stood upon the mightiest peak with the world in the palm of his hand, and he had seen all there was to see. Of course, he wouldn't care about trifling things, like some measly applause or a couple of cheers at the Spiritual Mountain competition, and as for the ranking, whoever wanted it was welcome to it. "There are other things I'd rather do," Moran said with a smile. "Shumeng is a young master, and young masters have their own lifestyles. I'm just a loafer, and loafers lead their own loafing lives." Madame Wang chided gently. "Silly child, what are you saying? You're no different from Meng. What's with young master this and loafer that?" Moran laughed cheekily, but felt a small pang inside. One had been born into the lap of luxury, while the other was of low and petty birth. Although he had been so immensely fortunate as to wind up here at Shisheng Peak, he had nevertheless spent the first 10 or so years of his life in a murky haze. How could he and his cousin possibly be the same? But he couldn't really say any of that to Madame Wang, not when she was looking at him with that gentle, concerned expression, so he only nodded and said, "Auntie is right, I misspoke." Madame Wang shook her head with a smile and handed him a small chikan pouch embroidered with pollia flowers. "You'll have to look after yourself while you travel. Take this. It's filled with all the kinds of medicine for treating injuries. I compounded them myself, so they're more effective than what you can buy in the store. Make sure to keep it safe." "Thanks a lot, Auntie," Moran said gratefully. Shi Mei spoke next. "I don't have much of anything to give you besides this jade pendant. Here, wear it. It warms your spiritual core." In Moran's hand, the white jade was creamy smooth and warm to the touch, an exceedingly rare high-grade item. He hurriedly pressed the jade pendant back into Shi Mei's hand. "I can't accept this. It's far too valuable. Besides, my spiritual core is fire elemental to start with. If it's warmed any further, I might have a chi deviation." Shi Mei laughed. "Don't be silly. What do you mean, chi deviation?" "In any case, I'm not taking it." Moran stood firm. "You have a weak constitution. It'll do you more good than it would me." "But I had someone purchase it at the Xuanyan Pavilion auction just for you." Moran felt warm at his words, but more than that, his heart ached for him. Then it must have been really expensive. This jade pendant really won't do much for me, but it'd be great for you. Shimei, I appreciate the thought, but please keep it for yourself, and remember to wear it so it can nourish your spiritual energy. Before Shimei could reply, Moran uncoiled the thin cord and looped the jade pendant around Shimei's neck. It looks good on you, he said with a grin, then lifted a hand to pat him on the shoulder. Much better than it would on me. I'm such a rough and tumble kind of person. I'd probably break something like that in 2 days. Ranar is right, the jade pendant can be worn by anyone, but it's best for people with water elemental spiritual cores. You should keep it. Now that even Madame Wang had spoken, of course Shimei had to concede. He nodded and said to Moran, take care of yourself then. Don't worry, I'll write to you often. Despite his sorrow at having to say goodbye so soon, Shimei couldn't help but smile at that. You do realize only Shizun can read your handwriting, right? Oh, that's cute. Oh my gosh. The mention of Chu Wanning left Moran with a feeling he couldn't describe. The hatred that had gnawed at his very bones had dissipated, but the remorse lingered. Like a wound scabbing over, a dull, itchy ache in his heart. Holding that feeling in his chest, Moran set off down the mountain alone. 1, 2, 3. He counted in his head as he walked, head bowed. 101, 102, 103. At the foot of the mountain, he couldn't help but look back up toward Shisheng Peak, shrouded amongst the high clouds up the long flight of stone steps that seemed to rise without end. He murmured, 3,799. He had counted as he walked. That was the number of steps up to the main gate, the number of steps that Chu Wanning had climbed that day, carrying him on his back. Oh my god. Damn, that's a lot of steps. Oh shit. He was certain that for as long as he lived, he would never forget Chu Wanning's hands, cold as ice, chafed raw and bloody. Oh my god. And to think he thought Chu Wanning didn't like him. The truth of the matter was, whether a person did good or committed evil was rarely ever a feature of their inherent nature. Each person was like a plot of a farmland. Some were lucky, and their fields were sowed with grain, which come autumn would bear an abundant harvest, paddies awash with gentle fragrance of rice fields, of wheat rolling in the winds like waves. Looking out on the land, one would find it to be good and praiseworthy. But others were not so lucky. Their fields were planted with poppy seeds, and the spring breeze brought only the miasma of intoxicated sin and euphoric decadence, filling the skies and blanketing the land with that vile, bloody red and gold. The people abhorred it cursed it, and feared it even as they indulged in its blissful stupor, rotting away before its filthy stench. In the end, the righteous and upstanding would gather to set fire to the field, and as the twisting smoke rose into the sky, they would say, "Oh, he was a breeding ground of sin. He was a demonic fiend. He was vicious and ruthless. He had no conscience. He deserved it." All while he convulsed in the blaze, crying out in pain as the poppies shriveled into a charred, muddy morass. But this person had once been a plot of good farmland too. He had once wanted nothing more than water and sunlight. Who was it who had planted that first seed of darkness, who sowed the disaster that grew out of control? That plot of land, once temperate and lush, went up in flames and sank into ash, laid fallow. Moran was a plot of unwanted, abandoned land. He never thought someone would come into his life to plow these fields again, would give him a second chance. Chu Wanning. It would be 5 years before he could see him again. Today was day 1. He found himself already missing Chu Wanning's face, his stern, angry, gentle, serious, steadfast face. Moran slowly closed his eyes. He recalled his lives, past and present, so many bygone days scattering like snow in the wind. He realized that the Heavenly Rift incident had, in fact, been the greatest crossroads of his life. In his last life, he had loved someone dearly. Later, that person had given up his life, and Moran had fallen into hell. In this life, there was someone who loved and protected him. Later, that person had given up his life and brought Moran back to the world of the living. Oh my gosh! Okay, so that was just like, such a good emotional, in-depth look at Moran's feelings. Moran says he doesn't know his feelings, but he also has these profound thoughts about life and his experience, and it's just so beautifully written. Oh my god, does Chu Wanning come back next chapter? No. Oh my god, I want him back already. But it seems like if we are patient and if you're a slow reader like me, it might take some time to get to the good parts. But even the boring chapters without Chu Wanning, or where they're not doing whatever they were doing in that picture, they're still written so well and it's so compelling, and I just can't wait to read more. I really, really enjoy Meat Bun's writings. And I just love this story, and I love these characters, and I'm just so excited, and I'm excited to share it with all of you guys, so please don't spoil me in the comments. If you're gonna write a spoiler, could you write, spoilers and then do, a bunch of enters and, periods, so then the comment makes, a read more, and then you guys can talk about things and reply to them if you want to, and it still saves me. because I love reading your guys' comments, but just not the spoilers. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys would like to hang out with me and chat about the book more, I do a weekly live stream. This Friday at 7 p.m. PST will be the next one, and we can chat about the book, we chat about the TGCF Donghua currently airing, and it's a lot of fun. We end up playing Danmei-related games. All of my members are so kind to each other, and it's such a fun community to make new friends and chat about things in a chaotic, funny way. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you've been supporting my channel this far, we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers, which is freaking crazy! So I just want to say a big thank you to you guys. I'm getting sappy because it's like Christmas time, but thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!